What if everything we know about the dawn of civilization is wrong? Buried beneath the hills of southeastern Turkey lies a discovery so great it forces us to rethink human history. This is Gobekli Tepe, a 12,000-year-old temple complex so ancient it predates Stonehenge by 6,000 years, the Egyptian pyramids by 7,000, and even the invention of agriculture itself. But here's the problem. According to mainstream archaeology, monumental architecture like this should be impossible for its time. The people who built Gobekli Tepe were supposed to be hunter-gatherers, nomadic tribes, who followed wild herds and foraged for berries. They shouldn't have had the time, resources, or even organizational skills to carve and transport 20-ton stone pillars and then arrange them in precise circles and decorate them with intricate animal designs. Yet there it stands. Even more baffling, Gobekli Tepe wasn't just abandoned, it was deliberately buried around 8000 BCE. It was packed under thousands of tons of earth, as if it was hiding a secret. Why? Who built this? And what were they trying to preserve or protect us from? Let's take a closer look at the site that is rewriting human history, one buried stone at a time. In 1994, Klaus Schmitz, a German archaeologist, began work at what looked like an unremarkable hill near the city of Şanlıurfa in southeastern Turkey. Locals had long called the hill Potbelly Hill or Gobekli Tepe. Beneath a layer of topsoil, Schmitz unearthed massive T-shaped stone pillars that were organized in circular formations. Some of the stones weighed between 10 and 20 tons, and they were deliberately shaped, carved, and arranged in a way that showed planning, collaboration, and an aesthetic purpose. The site eventually revealed more than 200 such pillars, across 20 different enclosures. Carved into many of them were high-relief images of animals that included foxes, scorpions, vultures, and boars, as well as abstract symbols that suggest a symbolic or religious purpose. But here was the real bombshell. Radiocarbon dating placed the site at around 9600 BCE. That's before the domestication of animals, before metal tools, before permanent settlements, and centuries before the advent of even agriculture. For decades, archaeology taught that religion and monumental architecture came after farming and cities. Gobekli Tepe flipped that script. It suggested that spiritual practice, not agriculture, may have been the first force that brought people together to form organized societies. Let's start with the biggest question. How did a society without agriculture, metal tools, or even permanent settlements build something this sophisticated? Gobekli Tepe consists of at least 20 circular enclosures, each made of massive T-shaped limestone pillars, some standing 16 feet tall and weighing up to 20 tons. These pillars were quarried from bedrock over a mile away, meaning they were cut, carved, and transported without wheels, pulleys, or even domesticated animals. We're talking about moving multi-ton stones, shaping them with stone tools, raising them into vertical positions, and aligning them in massive circular formations. And all of this occurred thousands of years before the wheel was even invented. This suggests a workforce capable of sustained labor over time. Not just a single tribe, but possibly many groups working together. Some enclosures are 30 meters in diameter. The site required planning, architectural vision, and project management. But the people of that time were supposed to be transient bands of hunter-gatherers. They weren't supposed to stay in one place long enough to coordinate such efforts. Now let's think about other megastructures. The pyramids of Giza required thousands of workers, a surplus of food from farming, and advanced mathematics. Stonehenge was built by an agricultural society with trade networks. Gobekli Tepe, no farms, no storehouses, no evidence of a large workforce. So how did they do it? One theory by Klaus Schmidt suggests that Gobekli Tepe wasn't built by hunter-gatherers at all, but by a previously unknown semi-sedentary culture that had already mastered stonework before adopting farming. But here's where it gets wild. The site's carvings depict snakes, foxes, vultures, and scorpions, animals not typically hunted for food. Some pillars show humanoid figures with belts and loincloths, suggesting a structured society. There's evidence of feasting, huge amounts of butchered wild game, meaning they may have lured workers there with food. Was Gobekli Tepe a prehistoric company town? A place where hunter-gatherers were recruited for a grand project, fed, and then sent home? If so, who was organizing this? Mainstream archaeology calls Gobekli Tepe the world's first temple. But what if it wasn't just a place of worship, but a prehistoric doomsday vault? The carvings at Gobekli Tepe are not decorative. They are deliberate and symbolic. The carvings on the pillars within Gobekli Tepe feature many animals that are predators: lions, leopards, snakes, and scorpions. Others are scavengers, like vultures. Some researchers believe these symbols form a symbolic language. There are no written scripts, but the visual consistency across the enclosures suggests some kind of communication system. The site's most famous pillar, Pillar 43, aka the Vulture Stone, is covered in strange symbols. A giant vulture with outstretched wings, a scorpion beneath it, a headless human figure, a disc with a crescent shape, possibly the sun and moon. In 2017, researchers from the University of Edinburgh proposed something big. These carvings are a star map. The vulture equals the constellation of Sagittarius. The scorpion is the Scorpio constellation, and the disk is a comet or asteroid. Their theory? The carvings depict the catastrophic comet impact that triggered the Younger Dryas period, a sudden ice age around 10,800 BCE that wiped out animals like the mammoth and saber-toothed cats. This evidence suggests that Gobekli Tepe may have functioned as a primitive observatory. Some of the pillars' alignments seem to correspond to celestial bodies, solstices, or even constellations. For example, in Enclosure D, pillars may have aligned with the rising of Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. If true, this means that 1. The builders had advanced astronomical knowledge, thousands of years before even Babylon or Egypt. 2. They remembered a cataclysm and encoded it in stone. And 3. They may have wanted to preserve this knowledge for future survivors, which leads us to one of the most mysterious events in recorded history. After hundreds of years of use, Gobekli Tepe was deliberately buried. The evidence is overwhelming. The enclosures weren't abandoned and covered by erosion. They were systemically filled with debris, animal bones, tools, and loose rubble. The fill was deliberate, fast, and extensive. Why would a society spend so much time constructing such a monumental site, only to bury it completely? There are a magnitude of theories. One such theory is the cursed ground hypothesis. Some archaeologists believe the site was ritually decommissioned, perhaps after a disaster or taboo event. No signs of war or fire, no human remains, just carefully placed dirt, as if hiding something sacred. A second theory explains that this site may have been turned into a time capsule. What if the builders knew civilization would collapse? The buried layers are pristine, no erosion, no looting. The pillars were aligned to solstices, suggesting long-term planning. Could this have been a message to the future, perhaps to send a warning? A third theory suggests the most controversial idea so far. Gobekli Tepe was buried to suppress its secrets. Later Neolithic sites, show no astronomical carvings. Farming societies that followed ignored the site completely. Was there a cultural reset? A deliberate forgetting? Did they want to forget about this knowledge or make it inaccessible? If so, what were they hiding? Whatever the reason, the result was astonishing. The site was so well preserved that when uncovered thousands of years later, the carvings were still sharp. This act of burial ensured that Gobekli Tepe would outlast the civilization that built it, a final, intentional message left for the future. The existence of Gobekli Tepe has spawned dozens of theories, some mainstream, others more speculative. One of the most common questions is, was Gobekli Tepe the product of an unknown civilization? This doesn't mean aliens or lost continents, but it might suggest that our model of human development is too simplistic. Maybe there were pockets of advanced cultures, earlier than we thought, civilizations that built, created, and vanished, leaving behind only a few footprints in stone. Others speculate that Gobekli Tepe is just one of many such sites. We've only excavated about 5% of it. Nearby sites like Karahan Tepe are being dug up and may predate Gobekli Tepe. That suggests an entire cultural complex we've only just begun to understand. Still, others connect the site to the myths of the ancient world, from Sumerian texts to biblical stories. Could the memory of a place like Gobekli Tepe have echoed throughout oral traditions, surviving as the foundations of myth? But that leads to another question. What if Gobekli Tepe wasn't the beginning of civilization, but the last remnant of an earlier one? There is a lot of evidence to suggest this. The first evidence we have is the advanced symbolism found in the site, specifically the T-shaped pillars mirroring later Sumerian gods. The carvings found also show reptilian and avian beings similar to the global flood myths. Second are the global parallels to other historical sites around the world, in places like Iraq, Indonesia, and even in other places found inside Turkey. All show similar megalithic styles from the same era. Underwater ruins like Japan's Yonaguni suggest pre-flood civilizations. Finally, the third piece of evidence being the pre-Younger Dryas civilization. Atlantis, dated at 9000 BCE, the Hopi Third World destruction, the Hindu cycles of Yugas. Was there a global advanced culture that was wiped out by the comet? And Gobekli Tepe is its last monument. While speculative, the appeal of these ideas lies in the sheer mystery of the site. Gobekli Tepe doesn't just raise questions, it refuses to answer them. What Gobekli Tepe truly represents is a moment when humanity became more than just survival driven. It shows us that before we built cities, we built meaning. Before we carved out empires, we carved out stone for gods, ancestors, or the stars. The site also challenges how we teach history. If Gobekli Tepe was built by a previously unknown civilization, our entire historical model collapses. It implies that agriculture didn't lead to civilization, it was the other way around. Maybe farming was rediscovered after a catastrophe. Gobekli Tepe's feasting suggests organized labor came first. It would also mean that astronomy was older than we thought. The vulture stone proves prehistoric skywatching. Does this mean lost cultures could track comets and eclipses? History is cyclical, not linear. Civilizations rise, fall, and leave clues. Are we just the latest to almost figure it out? What could have existed before recorded history? Are we the first to do all the things we think are advanced? Or are we just the latest iteration of the cycle, doomed to repeat itself? Gobekli Tepe isn't just a site, it's a message in a bottle from a forgotten time, a riddle written in the stone, It stands as proof that the ancient world was not as simple as we believe. It forces us to ask, what else don't we know? Was it a temple, a warning, a tome for a forgotten world? One thing is certain, humanity's history is far older, stranger, and more mysterious than we've been taught. And if a single site can rewrite our past, what else is still buried? Maybe we're not the first advanced civilization. Maybe we're just starting to dig deep enough to find clues to the truth.